So I'm thinking maybe this flight controller just sucks.
Hey everybody, welcome back to RC with Adam. My name is Adam. Bottom line up front, as usual, I made kind of a cool, interesting, somewhat unique quadcopter, and I think it's cool, and it gives us some interesting FPV discussion points to talk about. So if you like building quadcopters and kind of talking about different frame designs and things like that, then you will enjoy this video. Don't go away because we have much more to talk about. Does it make any sense to put a car's gas tank on the roof of the car? Yeah, I didn't think so either. Then why are we strapping a heavy battery to our quadcopter way above the thrust plane of the propellers? This gives our quad a lopsided balance and can make its handling feel tipsy. So isn't there a better way? These are the questions I had, so I decided to build a quad to test out the idea of mounting the battery closer to the quad's center of gravity, or to put it another way, actually change the location of the battery in order to bring the center of gravity closer to the physical center point of the quadcopter. Now, unfortunately, due to the particular components that I used, this build didn't really turn out so great. So I wasn't able to properly compare the mid-mount battery performance to that of the top or bottom mount configurations. Still, I want to share this build process with you and get your thoughts on the idea of a mid or CG neutral mounted battery. Do you have a quadcopter that you use that has a battery like that? Are you a top mounted person? Are you a bottom mounted person? What is your idea on that theory? I'd love to hear about that, so leave a comment down below. Now, to be sure, it's not like no one has thought of this before. Frame designs like the Umagod Remix, Catalyst Machine Works Shocker, or GEP-RC KHX5, just to name a few, incorporate this mid-mount concept and also offer easy access to the electronics on the underside of the quadcopter. I could have just bought one of those quads, but I wanted to use a cheap, popular frame that I thought would make a good test bed for this project. So, first things first, let's start assembling the TBS Source One frame that I bought from Race Day Quad. And while we're doing that, I want to take a second to thank today's sponsor, PCB Way. PCB Way is helping me do what I do by sponsoring this video, and they may be able to help you do what you do too. PCB Way offers custom printed circuit boards, including rigid PCBs, flexible PCBs, and even rigid flex PCBs. How cool is that? They also offer rapid prototyping for CNC machined, sheet metal, 3D printed, and injection molded parts. If any of that sounds interesting, there's a link to PCB Way down in the description of this video. Now, once the frame is assembled, I'll add my universal flight controller adapter to go from 30.5 by 30.5 to 25 by 25 hole spacing. I decided to cannibalize my Cinewoop for this build, or further cannibalize it, using the receiver, video transmitter, and antenna, and the main 25 by 25 all-in-one flight controller and ESC combo board, which is the JHEMCU GHF411, now discontinued, and I think this is the reason why this build ultimately failed, as we'll see later. Or we might not see it, but basically it started getting weird, and I'm not sure why, but I think it's a flight controller thing. But let's talk about this board for just a second. This board is tiny, I know, and really not meant for 5-inch size quads, but the ESC amp rating, which I think is about 25 amps or 30 amps, is supposedly high enough for these motors, and I think other people have used this board on a 5-inch setup. However, I have a feeling that that may be part of the problem that I was having with this board. Also, while I can appreciate the amazing technology packed into such a small space, it is the small space that makes these boards so difficult to work on. And in this case, I actually accidentally burned off one of the UART pads with the soldering iron, which doesn't happen very often to me. So this does have to do with the manufacturing quality, but also the pad would be larger on a larger board, like a 30 by 30 board. So it would have absorbed the heat better and probably just would have been a little bit, less likely to get, damaged. So point here is, keep in mind that these boards are not easy to solder on, and I really don't recommend these tiny all-in-one boards for beginners. And this turned out to be a pretty grossly messy build, but that's okay since it's just for testing purposes. Of course, that's what I say about all my builds. So you can see right away, compared to a traditional freestyle setup, the battery is much closer to the same plane as the motors and propellers. I did have to 3D print a custom extra tall GoPro mount so that the propellers would clear just below the GoPro. So notice that even with the GoPro mount being taller than normal, the height of the GoPro overall relative to the propellers is still much lower than a traditional setup. And also note that with the two front motors as close to the body as they are, if your action camera is any wider than the top plate, which is most GoPros now, you will need to elevate it like I did, and ideally the front motors would be spaced farther apart to allow room for the GoPro. And once everything is together and assembled and working and stuff, and after some beta flight setup and magic, it's time to fly. So let's head out there and see how she flies.
We'll do a quick little test hover here. Feels good. Which doesn't say a whole lot, but very interesting. That was kind of sloppy. Oh, it's because of the camera tilt. I've got different camera tilt on here. We don't have quite as much camera tilt. Okay, so I don't have to go quite as far. It's pretty funny to see the propellers way up above the camera like that. You can see in the corners of the camera, I think. We don't have the GoPro on there, so it's lighter than normal. But, I mean, you know, it seems to be working. I mean, honestly, it's my first time flying it, so it's hard to tell, you know, really the difference, like why it would feel different, or if it just feels different because it's, you know, different motors and different quads, slightly different motor frame size, like configuration. This one's a squished X, the other one's a true X. It is going to be interesting to see how well this holds up in a crash with that mount that I have on there. For, I mean, oh geez, oh no. With how the flight controller is mounted on there. That's going to be interesting. Fortunately, I did melt the little pegs to make sure that the flight controller stays locked in place, because I think it would be really bad if I had not done that. But oh geez, video got really bad right there for a second. It always feels, you know, different, and I would say better to fly without the GoPro, because you just have so much extra power and so much more maneuverability with the quad. But generally, you know, it's always nicer to fly without that. But we are also kind of testing out this VTX as well. I mean, really, I haven't used much of any of these things. So all of this gear is kind of a test case. Feels a little slippery, I would say. Could be because there's less weight, but I don't know if that makes sense. I think it's these props. You just don't get as much grip with these props. You do get a lot of smoothness and softness and, you know, flight time and stuff, but not a lot of grip and stuff. So maybe we'll swap out the props. Okay, so that was that. That was a long flight.
This is going to be the first flight with the new and improved Hero mount on here, which just barely is just barely clear of the propellers. We got our gold bat 1500 milliamp hour 4-cell battery. Here we go.
Yeah, so here's a little bit of GoPro footage. It looks really bad though, and I'm not sure like if I was just terrible at flying at this particular point in time, which wasn't that long ago from when I'm recording it now, or if the rates were just way off or what. I'm not sure if it was the quad or what was going on, but it just looks really jerky and it's just really sloppy. So it looks really bad. So I'm not going to show you much of that. This is just to kind of show you that I did mount the GoPro on it, and I kind of was able to get sort of a feel for it with the GoPro on, but well, no, not really, because I'm about to crash it right now.
This is what happened after when it crashed. So we have the propeller here. Got really smashed up because in the crash something happened and they all wanted to go up here, and we did a little choppy chop number on the GoPro, which is lame.
Oh, so close. But also this thing is just flying weird, so I'll take a look at the footage, but it just felt really like wobbly and warbly, blah. And that about sums it up. This quad just kept getting worse and worse, and then I was having like weird control issues when I tried flying it more recently. Although sometimes it flew pretty well. It was just weird. It was strange, and then it would do like death rolls, so I'm still trying to figure that out. To be honest, this is kind of embarrassing because this project was just sort of like sort of nothing in a way, because I didn't really actually get to test out in depth the handling characteristics of the mid-mounted battery, but consider this a part 1 or a version 1, and we will have to revisit this in the future if you guys are interested. If you are, and let me know what your thoughts are by leaving a comment down below. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you again very soon.